Here at Paddy Power, we're the home of the Money Back Special, with some incredible offers every single week. Check out the website or app today. Terms and conditions apply. 18 plus begambleaware.org.
Hello and welcome along to the Racing Post GAA Postcast in association with Paddy Power. My name is Mark Boylan. I'm still in the hot seat for David Jennings, who's off sunning himself in warmer climates than this, but I'm delighted to still be joined by our expert panel. As usual, our mighty man from Kilkenny, Aidan Taggy Fogarty, joins us on the line, as well as our Paddy Power representative, Damien Fitzgerald. Thanks a million for joining us, lads. We'll keep kicking on here and we'll go straight for the 3 quickfire questions, as is customary on the podcast. Taggy, first for you. Kilkenny and Cork, they've produced some immense battles and we're looking forward to another one this weekend, please God. What's your favourite memory in black and amber against the Rebels?
Yeah, Mark, huge game on Sunday, and we would have came across the Rebels years ago, I suppose, when they had a brilliant team in the Gardner and Halpine, and I suppose we were only coming on the scene, so I suppose my memory is definitely 2006, our Ireland final. Cork were going for the 3 in a row. We were kind of underdogs. We hadn't won the All-Ireland in about 2 years, 2003 I think we won it last, and it was just 3 years later, and there was big talk about this Cork team, about how they're reinventing hurling, and to be fair, I'll be honest, that was getting underneath our skin, and it was just a huge game, and for a lot of us that day, it was my first All-Ireland final, and it was just a surreal experience, and I was lucky enough to get man of the match that day, and I suppose I was underneath the cosh a bit, as in I was unknown really on the team. I was lucky even to be starting that day, I felt, because I was a poor semi-final, but started and just got man of the match, and the whole thing just took off from there. And I suppose if you talk to any lads around Kilkenny, that 2006 Ireland final stands out, because that kind of catapulted us into great things after, and look, it was sweet. We stopped Cork for 3 in a row, and it kind of it started our regime of being a top dog,
I was gassed when I was typing out that question. I was expecting nothing else but that answer. I was delighted to hear it. Question 2, hugely successful year for Laois under Eddie Brennan. Emmanuel know well. Do you think he's a candidate logically in time for the Kilkenny boss when Brian steps aside?
Yeah, look, I think so, Mark. It's whether he wants to take it. It's kind of an Alex Ferguson kind of a style job, when Cody goes, if he ever goes. But look, Eddie definitely has put his hand up.
David Moyes now, are you?
Definitely not. He won't like. I've called him a lot of things over the years, but not David Moyes. He wouldn't let me call me that. But look, he definitely put his hand up, Mark. He started off in Kilkenny with a junior club in Lisdowney, won the championship, trained Kilkenny under 20s, had a poor year the first year, and won the Leinster final the year after. I remember talking to him actually after. He said it was some learning curve for him, that under 20s, and I think he's taken that into Laois hurling as well. And look, it's all been said all week long what he's done for Laois hurling. They were at a miserable kind of a low ebb when he went in, and he just joined them all together. And I think he's brought a kind of a Cody mantra, as well as his own techniques and his own style of play, which is so important. You have to put your own stamp on the team. So I think, he's definitely a candidate. There's a lot of candidates in Kilkenny. He's definitely he's under pressure, maybe with a man called Henry Shefflin as well. He's taken over Ballyhale and his first year after winning an All-Ireland with them. So look, I think Henry maybe might have a bigger presence than Eddie, but Eddie I think has maybe the better CV at the minute, so it'll be interesting.
Interesting stuff. And finally, from the 3 quickfire questions, at this point in time, Taggy, who do you think is the leading candidate to be hurler of the year?
Yeah, well, if I was to pick one right now, as in what's have to happen in the championship, I'd have to pick TJ Reid. Not just because he's from Kilkenny, but what he's done for Kilkenny this year in the championship. He's dragged them through matches. He's probably the only player out there that has such an influence on the game and has such an influence on his own team. You take him out of Kilkenny, they're a very, very average team. But put him in, obviously he's super. So at this point in time, you'd have to say TJ. Going forward, Mark, maybe looking for the end of the year kind of candidate. Seamus Cannon, I think, is doing very well for Tipperary. Had a poor-ish game the last day. Now, the way I look at it, he got 3 balls into his hands. All the tip forwards were playing poor, but he got 3 balls into his hand and scored 1-1 that day. So I think he's on top of his game. He's captain for Tipperary as well. His work rate is very good. He scores 5-12 already in this year's championship. They're playing Laois on Sunday. I expect him to get a high score as well. Into maybe playing Wexford. Do they have the handier run in? Perhaps. So I could see him in an Ireland final, and that's why I'm saying Seamus Cannon, because really it's from now on it's nearly picked on, which is kind of unfortunate. They tend to kind of forget about what's gone in the preliminary stages, and it's usually quarter-final, final, semi-final stages when they kind of pick him. So it's someone looking forward to an Ireland final I'd be looking at, and Seamus Cannon is definitely up there.
Well, there you have it now. The goal machine that is Seamus Callan is 5-1 to be hurler of the year, and TJ Reid double the price, 10-1. So you can find those markets available on Paddy Power. And speaking of Paddy Power, Damien, thanks a million for joining us. We'll go for the 3 quickfire questions for you. It was obviously a massive shock with Laois last weekend. Did you take big money on Dublin, or what was the biggest bet in the game?
I think we took a few decent bets. We didn't take anything too big on them. I think a couple of $2,000 bets on them to win the match were the biggest bets we took. We did lay Dublin fairly heavily in the handicap as well, on an 8-point handicap to move it to 9. It was obviously a good result for us from a Cume point of view. They were in a good few Cumes, so overall it was a pretty good result for us, yeah.
And I know you're a tip man, and there's probably bias in this next question, but Cork-wise, they blew away Westmeath. We didn't learn a whole pile about them, but it was a huge score. How far do you think they can go in the championship, blue and gold aside?
Yeah, well, it's kind of a hard one with Cork because they're very inconsistent. Like, they were very good against Limerick, and they do seem to be able to compete with Limerick better than other counties at the moment. Anyway, they did put in 2 very poor performances against Tip and Clare. Like, the thing with Cork all the time is their forwards are obviously really good, but their backs are a question mark, and it's going to depend how far they can go and how much their backs can hold up. I think one thing with Cork is that they're a bit weather dependent as well. I think if it's a wet day, I don't think it suits Cork. I think the kind of style they play with a lot of short passing, I think that depends on having a good day. So I think they'll want the weather to be good for the rest of the championship if they're going to do anything.
Some good points there, Damien, on Cork, the good ground horse that needs it like that. But finally, what is the biggest bet outstanding outright at the minute for Paddy Power you've taken on the Hurling Championship? So what's the biggest amount that you're standing to lose at this point in time?
The biggest bet we took so far is $5,000 on Limerick at 2-1 just before the Munster finals. So it definitely looks a bit of value now. They're into 5-4 now, obviously, but that's the biggest bet we've taken so far.
Super stuff. That'll be stuff. Not too much of a nightmare now compared to some of the sums you've called out here in recent weeks, but a nice bet for whoever is on at 2-1. Listen, we'll crack on with Sunday's action. Jeez, I absolutely can't wait to get my teeth into this on Sunday and get a look at this. So first, we're going to kick off 2 o'clock in Croke Park, Kilkenny versus Cork on RT2. Damien, how do you bet for this?
We bet 4-6 Cork, 8-1 to draw, 13-8 Kilkenny. Cork -2 is 11-10. 9-1 the handicap draw. Kilkenny +2 is 5-6.
100%. Taggy, look, one thing that surprised me with the Wexford game in Kilkenny, just the manner in which they saw it out. They were going for goals when I thought there was time for points. There was a bit of a cock-up in the first half as well with the free. It just wasn't very Kilkenny-like, I didn't think. Will Cork see areas they can exploit, or what way do you see this going?
Yeah, Mark, I think so. I think Kilkenny kind of took Wexford for granted, really, in that Leinster final. I felt that they were going for goals too early and definitely panicked at the end. There was chances of 3 points to level it up and even win the game if they just took their scores, but definitely panicked, and so uncharacteristically like Kilkenny. Cody would have them nailed on the head to say just take your scores in the heat of battle, and they're used to it. So I was very surprised. So Cork will look at that game, and I think the biggest thing Cork will take out of it is the running game at Kilkenny. All through the year, I've seen them through the league, I've seen them in last year's championship and this year. Kilkenny do not like this short passing, and the backs for Kilkenny do not like the forwards to run at them. So I think Cork would definitely play the short ball as they do. They play the ball to hand, a very good running game, and they will attack them and they will try run them Kilkenny backs into the ground because they're there for the taking. I think Morrissey had a poor game the last day on wing back. They could put Lehan on him, and that's if Morrissey even starting. I have a feeling he won't. Paul Murphy in the corner as well. He was taken for a few balls. So I think definitely Cork will try work it through the lines as well, and they'll probably have a plan for TJ. Every team will have to have a plan for TJ. Try man-mark TJ. I see Owen Cadigan came out centre back again, Westmeath. That could be applied just to get him in gear for marking TJ. And I think the full back line Kilkenny will be targeted. Cork will be looking at Murphy, Hugh Lawler, relatively new, and Joey Holden. They'll be looking at them. Cadigan could be on Joey Holden, Horgan on Murphy, and perhaps Harry on Lauder. They will definitely aim ball low into them boys and to try to get the grips of Kilkenny,
And Damien, with that in mind, as Daggy's saying about the forward line potentially having a crack at the full back line to good effect, Cork are here as favourites, but can you depend on them to get the job done? Like we're talking here, Taggy's talking about denying them back in 2006. We're waiting a long time to see them deliver.
Yeah, I suppose Cork have gone a long time to win for winning All Ireland since 2005, which is an awful long time for Cork. And it's been hard to trust them recently, and they've lost games they should won. And like, there's always a doubt about Cork in the last few years because their backs aren't really at the level that maybe you need to win in All Ireland. So they do have a lot to prove, Cork. They'll need to equal Kilkenny's work rate. Kilkenny's work rate is always going to be good, so they'll need to equal that just as a starting point. I think Cork, it depends a lot around midfield. If Cork can get on top around midfield and deliver good ball into their forwards, I'd expect them to win, but I'm not sure that's going to happen. I think it's going to be a very tight game.
But I'm thinking along similar lines here. But if we're to go to you, Taggy, Kilkenny man aside here, who wins this and what will be the reasoning behind it?
Very tough one to call. I have my head telling me one thing, my heart telling me another thing, Mark. I think Damien hit the nail on the head there. I think for Kilkenny to win this game, the Kilkenny forwards are going to have to absolutely be 100%. Not from a scoring capacity, but just from a work rate capacity. They're going to really have to stop the ball going to the Cork forwards, because if it gets in there, some of them forwards are unmarkable, especially if they get good quality ball. So I think it's going to have to be stopped at source. And that's what we've done before. That's what we've done with Tip. That's what we've done with Cork years ago. And I think that's what Kilkenny and Brian Coney will be harping into the forwards. Forget about scoring. The scores will come. But just be in their face and bring it down to a dogfight. If they bring it down to a dogfight, Kilkenny probably have a better chance. But if it's an open game, Cork will destroy them. And I think if Cork are going to win, they could win by 5 or 6 points rather than the 1 or 2. If it's a close game, Kilkenny win. So you asked me the question. I'm going to go with Kilkenny. I think it's just there should be a big game in them. And, if they really hit Cork hard and bring it down to a dogfight, I think they can scratch over the line.
Similar terms here. I'm expecting myself Kilkenny, if they win, for it to be tight. I like Kilkenny to win by 1 to 3 points at 9-2. Damien, what about yourself?
Yeah, I kind of be thinking along similar lines. I think at the prices I just favour Kilkenny. I think you know what you're going to get with Kilkenny to a kind of Cork are inconsistent, and I don't know would I like to have my money on them, to be honest. I think the draw at 8-1 is probably a runner as well.
8-1. So is that your best bet on the coupon, or what would that be?
No, my best bet on the coupon is Adrian Mullen first goal at 9-1. It kind of took him a couple of games to get going in Leinster, but the last couple of games he's looked a real threat. So I think at 9-1 he's a big price for first goal.
A1. Taggy, what about yourself on the coupon in general? That stands out.
Yeah, I'll be back in Kilkenny in the handicap at +2, but I think under 1.5 goals at 7-2 is a good bet. Kilkenny haven't been scoring goals. Cork only scored 1 goal against Westmeath. I thought they'd be scoring more against that. So I feel there could be only 1 goal in this game. So under 1.5 goals at 7-2.
Great stuff. Well, look at that. That doesn't whet your appetite for what's coming up on Sunday. I don't know what will. And to top it off at 4 o'clock, we have Tipperary and Laois. Now, lads, it was you mentioned it was something else for Laois, but surely it's coming to the end of the road here for them. You'd have to imagine. But Damien, where are we prices wise for this?
Yeah, it's 1 to 80 Tip, 40 to 1 to draw, 20 to 1 Laois. The handicap is 15 points. Tip minus 15 is 10 to 11. Laois plus 15 is 10 to 11, and 14 to 1 the handicap draw.
And Taggy, can Laois in any way keep this close, or is it going to be one-way traffic, do you think?
I think it could be close for maybe 40 minutes or so. Look, at Laois, we've talked about them, done superbly, but this is a wounded Tip team, and Tip coming in as favourites. Dublin don't like this favourites tag, and I think Dublin were just well under par. Tip are forewarned now. They've seen what can happen if you're complacent and not going into a championship game ready for it. And I think just the Tip forwards themselves, if they get motoring, they can make that ball sing, and they'll be potting balls over the bar and possibly looking for maybe the next day as well. They won't be saying that, but players themselves will be saying, right, well, if I'm on this team here, I'm going to have to make an impact for maybe a semi-final place to get my starting place against Wexford. So it's going to be very difficult. It's a third game for Laois. In 15 days, they had a few pints as well. They were celebrating. They're on a crest of a wave. There is a big spirit in the camp that can't be underestimated. But I just feel Tip forwards and their the little wake up call they got in the Munster final will just drive them on to a big score.
So do you think here the handicap is at 15? Do you think there's any value in one way or the other, or is that about accurate? Yeah,
no, I think it's about accurate. I think a Tip at minus 15 at 10 to 11 would be a good bet on the handicap. Yeah, I just think if forwards get motor, they're unstoppable. They put up 2.28. They're beating most teams by 10 or 11, 10 points up to the Munster final. So I think the handicap at minus 15 for Tip is a good bet at 10 to 11.
And Damien, now just briefly actually, before we touch on something else, what do you think? Taggy mentioned the potential for complacency last time against Limerick. What do you think it was that did Laois the last time, or Tipperary last time? Obviously, a very, very classy Limerick side, but how did you equate the performance to?
Well, it was quite similar to a lot of old failings of what Tip have had over the last few years, where when Tip get better in the last few years, it's kind of like the half-forward line can't win any ball, and the ball just keeps coming straight down on the backs. So Tip do have a kind of a choice this weekend for the semi-final, if they're going to stick with what they have or if they're going to change it up a bit, because it's very hard, I think, to see the Tip team that played the Munster final. It's very hard to see it turning around against Limerick. Like, they probably don't have the physicality around midfield and the half-forward line to compete with Limerick. So they might need to make a few changes, and that's probably dangerous at this stage of a championship. But it's very hard to see them beating Limerick. Now, whether they'll get to a final and see what happens, they might have to play Limerick, of course. But yeah, I think Tip's half-forward line would be a worry, because I don't think they have ball winners there, and it's been a big problem for them over the last few years.
And I was listening to Midlands 103. I was working down at the races in Limerick, listening to the commentary in one ear whilst listening to quotes from trainers in the other. But I was listening to Midlands 103, and there was a great dig, I suppose, towards your lads there, that you had priced up the game with Dublin to face Tipperary. And I see now you've counteracted that by having odds available for Wexford to play Laois in the semi-final.
Yeah, I suppose we made a mistake there, so we had to do something. Yeah. Sure. We're just having a bit of a crack with it. Really, we made a mistake, and we're willing to admit that. So we can.
Well, fair play. And come here, just Taggy there. Obviously, Tipperary, you mentioned there, they could have a nice run through to an Ireland final in the sense of, they're a shorter price than Limerick to reach the Ireland final. Would you expect them to account for Wexford?
I think, I think they have a great chance of taking Wexford as well. It won't be simple. Wexford played a style of hurling that's just really kind of, it upsets a free-flowing team. And you've seen that Kilkenny, they just swarm out the middle third, and they play a sweeper system. But I think Tipperary are actually very good at nullifying the sweeper system, as in they're great stick men. They can play it down the lines. They have John McGrath down the corner. Seamus Cannon make his runs out. So I think they're very good at actually nullifying the sweeper system. And in Croke Park, it's actually easier to do that. And realistically, they have better hurlers, but I think it'll actually come down to the fight. And that's Sheedy's big problem, I think, with Tipperary. They have the hurlers, but it's actually just the draw and the fight to get it back into them. But I do think that they'll take Wexford if they get there.
You similar thinking, Damien?
Yeah, I think they'd probably I think it would be a battle, and I think Tip would have to be up for the game. But yeah, I think they'd probably just about get through all right.
Lovely stuff. I know, with that in mind, I don't think we need to ask who wins and why, but what's the best bet on the Paddy Power match coupon here, Taggy?
Yeah, on the match, as I said, I think I'll go a Tip at -15 at 10 to 11. I think just the forwards, if they get into the rhythm, they're going to rack up a big score. And I think Laois, fair play to him, fair play to Eddie, done huge things. But I think maybe in the 40-45 minutes, they might just start running out of steam.
100%. And what about you, Damien?
My favourite bet is Laois to score over 19.5 points at 5-6. I just think it could be a pretty open game on Sunday. And Laois do have good forwards, and they've shown a good ability to score. And Tip's backs, maybe there's still a question mark. So I would expect Laois to get over 19.5 at 5-6.
Great stuff. Well, what one there now? Not that it's anything too out of the ordinary, but Seamus Callan maybe in the man of the match market 5-1. Just could be a game that he runs riot, and I could see it happening. Now we'll roll on to the naps from the hurling perspective. We've only got 2 games here, and Paddy Power do enhance the multiple that you can get online. If you go to your GAA markets there, you can see it later on this afternoon. Hopefully we don't end up clashing too much. My nap for the weekend will be Kilkenny +2 in the handicap against Cork. What about you, Damien?
I'll go for Laois over 19.5 points.
And Taggy?
I will go for Patrick Horgan and Seamus Cannon both to score a goal at 3-1. I think Seamus Cannon could run right, Mark. You hit the nail on the head there. And I think on the Kilkenny side of things, Kilkenny will not, seen against Wexford, any threat of a goal, the Kilkenny backs will bring down a player, and Patrick Horgan is their penalty taker. So there's a good chance of him scoring a goal in that game. So Patrick Horgan, Seamus Cannon at 3-1 score a goal.
Mighty stuff. Well, listen, lads, thanks a million for joining me. Damien will still be with us in part 2 for our football postcast with Paddy O'Rourke. With Taggy Fogarty, thanks a million for joining us, and enjoy the weekend if you're at Croke Park.
Friends, or maybe more. Earn a 20 quid free bet for every friend you refer to Paddy Power, thanks to our Friends with Benefits programme. Log in to your Paddy Power account and share your referral link to get started. Terms and conditions apply. 18+, begambleaware.org.
Welcome back to the GAA Postcast in association with Paddy Power. We've enjoyed our hurling preview just there now with Taggy Fogarty, and I'm delighted now to be joined by Paddy O'Rourke, our football expert, alongside our Paddy Power representative, Damien Fitzgerald. Thanks a million for joining us, Paddy. Just 3 quick-fire questions to kick it off, as is customary for the Postcast. What was the most important thing you learned from last weekend's action is question 1.
I suppose the most important thing from Meath point of view was that we got over the line by hook or by crook. We got into the Super 8s. I think if you had looked at stats for the last few years, we'd been knocked out at that stage, and no team had gone from losing the provincial final to coming out the next day and winning. So for me to do that anyway at all was brilliant, and I think there were a little bit more value for the 1-point win last weekend.
Tend to agree. A not so biased answer, but maybe a biased question coming for you here now. What outcome would represent a successful campaign for Meath in the Super 8s this year?
I think staying competitive in all 3 games. People will be looking at us after coming up from Division 2 and maybe the hammering that Dublin gave us in the Leinster final. They'll be thinking maybe Meath are going to be the whipping boys. But I think if they can start off well and put down a good performance, a good platform this weekend against Donegal, I certainly don't think that Mayo and Kerry, I think they're there to play football against both of them. So I think if Meath can put down a good performance against Donegal, they'll build on that confidence then into Croke Park against Mayo, and then welcoming Kerry maybe into Navan in the last game. Kerry might be out of the hunt for the semi-finals. Meath might be as well, and there might be something there just for pride to play for in the last game, and it could be a chance for them maybe to take a scalp.
Great stuff. And finally, for the third and final quick-fire question, now we love a bit of value. We love an anti-post bet to keep it running through the Super 8s. Is there a value bet there at all in the qualifying group markets to qualify from your group in the Super 8s, or to top it or to finish bottom? Is there a value bet there, do you see, Paddy?
I was looking through, but I think it's going to go with form. I think Dublin will top their side more than likely. Tyrone will probably finish second, and then on the other side Donegal and Mayo, I think. So maybe if you could get you might be looking
is even money. I see here. Is that where you're thinking?
Yeah, I think maybe last year's final it could be worth Donegal or Tyrone and Dublin in an Ireland final again for the second year in a row.
A1, Paddy, thanks a million. Now, Damien, firstly, as we often ask you, last weekend on the football front, was it a profitable one or a loss, or what was the worst result for Paddy Power?
Yeah, the last few weekends I've been giving you the same answer. It wasn't a great weekend from our point of view, really. The football qualifiers haven't gone very well for us. All the favourites winning last weekend was very poor. Tyrone were a very, very poor result. They were back very heavily from 3-10 into 2-9. So we big loss in the match and handicap in that match in particular. But yeah, with all the favourites winning, it wasn't a good weekend for us.
And in terms of now this point in time, as mentioned, we like an anti-post bet. Question 2 is the front runner for the football of the year. Who do you believe will be the best man to look for in that market at the moment?
Well, I suppose it's fairly obvious at this stage he's the 6-1 favourite, but I think Paul Mannion does look the front runner at this stage. Like, obviously, if Dublin are going to win the All-Ireland, you would expect a Dublin player to get it. He's been very good consistently across the games, getting 4 or 5 points a game. He looks Dublin's main threat in the forwards. And I suppose it's not one at this stage, and what has happened up to now doesn't really matter in one way, but I just think with the form that's in, he definitely deserves to be the front runner. So 6-1 favourite Paul Mannion, but I think it's a fairly fair price.
Snap up the 6-1, says Damien Fitzgerald before the Super 8s about Paul Mannion. And finally, question 3, what do you expect to be the biggest surprise to come from the Super 8s this year?
I think Cork are going to be pretty competitive. I think they're a pretty decent side. I think they'll cause a lot of teams problems. I think they're a good hard running style, and they can obviously score goals. They scored 420 against Laois last weekend, and there's not many teams that can do that. I'm not 100% sure they'll qualify. It's a tough group. They're 10-3 to qualify, but I think they'll definitely be a little bit more competitive than people expect, and I could see them qualifying from that group.
Interesting shout, Damien. Damien likes the sounds of Cork in the Super 8s to give them a bit of a scare. We'll crack on with Saturday's action here. Group 2 of the Super 8s is the first one we'll go to here. Up in Dr. Hyde Park at 5 o'clock on Sky Sports, we have Roscommon versus Tyrone. How do we bet here, Damien?
Yeah, we're 3-10 Tyrone, 9-1 to draw, and 7-2 Roscommon. It's a 4-point handicap. Tyrone -4 is 5-6, 10-1 to handicap draw, and Roscommon +4 is 11-10.
And Paddy, Tyrone are arriving here with momentum, and obviously Roscommon have had their break and coming in fresher. We mentioned last week you'd like a bit of time if you were in that sort of position rather than coming with weeks on weeks of football, but at the same time this Tyrone side look very, very dangerous. Are they worthy favourites?
I think they are going on the way they blew Cavan out of the water last weekend. They seem to have. They went out with the whole attacking style of play against Donegal in the first game and got turned over quite easily by Donegal. That they played into Donegal's hands. They went back, they sat down, and they came back with their old style defensive setup and counter-attack football, and it's paying dividends again. It's an intriguing enough game. Roscommon have gone through Connacht. They're waiting in the long grass. They're probably working away there behind closed doors on what they're going to do. They would have only known who their opposition was going to be, last weekend. So I think this is going to be tighter than the handicap margin suggests. I really like the way Roscommon have gone about their business this year. There's a bit of grit about them. I think Anthony Cunningham has put a bit of steel into their defensive style of play, and they do have forwards who can score, which is a massive bonus. And Cox up front seems to be the spearhead of that. And if they can get Enda Smith back in some sort of decent form and Cathal Craig around him running off the shoulder, I think they will pose threats. I think there is plenty of scoring opportunities there at the back against Tyrone.
Super stuff. And Damien, look, every game in the Super 8 is important, but I think to win the first one is particularly important. Roscommon have to get off to a big start here, you'd think. But is there anywhere they can hurt Tyrone in particular, do you think?
As Paddy was mentioning, I think the Roscommon have a good defence, and they don't give up many goal chances. So I think this will be a pretty tight match. Like, I think Tyrone's form against Cavan and Kildare maybe might be a little bit false. I thought Cavan were very, very poor last week. Roscommon at home are going to put in a performance. I think the main thing for Roscommon is that I think Tyrone will look to shut down Conor Cox, so they might have to get some scores from elsewhere more. The likes of Cathal Craig, the two Dailies and Enda Smith, I think they'll need them to be on the scoreboard, because I think Tyrone will probably concentrate on trying to keep Conor Cox out of the game.
Interesting stuff. Back to you, Paddy, just very briefly. You mentioned there the Roscommon, they do pose a threat, that they can give them a right good battle, but do you think they're going to come out on top, or is it Tyrone's to lose?
I think the form book, you probably go with Tyrone, the old dog for the hard road, and they've been in this position so many times. If you go back to the last time they won the All-Ireland in 2008, they came through a few scares on the back road and they got to an All-Ireland final and pulled it off. But saying that, they're going down to Hyde Park, you'd be expecting a big Roscommon support, and they're mad passionate down there. So I think that there is a bit of value if you expect it to be a tight game. Roscommon +4 is 11-10, so at home, the home advantage, they're Connacht champions, and to give them a 4-point head start at home in the first game of the Super 8s, I think that could be a live one there at 11-10.
Is that your best bet on the coupon, Paddy, or is there anything else that jumps out?
I'd say that's the best bet at coupon.
Lovely stuff. And Damien, what about you?
I think Roscommon are a bit overpriced at 7-2. As Paddy was saying, home advantage should make a massive difference here. And in fairness, their form in Connacht was very good. They went away to Mayo and Galway and they beat them both. You can't really forget that. So that is very good form. Another bet I like on the game is 2-1 for Tyrone not to score a goal. As I was mentioning, the Roscommon defence is very good. If you looked at those games against Galway and Mayo, they didn't give up any goals, and they didn't really give up any goal chances either. So I think at 2-1 for Tyrone not to score a goal is a good price.
Well, I'm not meaning to copy the homework here now. That's exactly what I've written down in front of me here on my pen and paper here. That's what I've jotted down as my preferred one on that coupon there for the game. But we'll crack on. We'll keep going. Hopefully we don't have too much more looking over the shoulder here from my point of view. I don't want to be looking like I'm not turning up, but you've taken the words out of my mouth. But crack on with Dublin versus Cork in Croke Park, 7 o'clock on RTE2. What way do we bet here, Damien?
Yeah, it's 1-33 Dublin, 33-1 to draw, and 12-1 Cork. It's a 10-point handicap. Dublin -10 is 10-11. 12-1 the handicap draw, and Cork +10 is evens.
And pretty simply enough, Paddy, do you think Dublin are going to cover the 10-point handicap here?
I think they will. I think that they've been waiting and kind of prepping for this part of the season all year, and I think they'll set up to shut down Cork's main go-to men, Mark Collins and Brian Hurley, and It's different when you're playing teams coming through the back door. They might have only one marquee defender that has to pick up one of them. With Dublin, they can just rotate, and they're going to have Keane O'Sullivan sitting blocking there on the edge of the D. So I think the goal threat for Cork will be eliminated, and I think they'll be shut down quite easily.
Damien, you've mentioned there, do you think Cork can put it up to teams? This is obviously a very, very tough task for them, but do you think they can get close, or do you think there's any value in that handicap?
Yeah, I fancy Cork a bit in this game. I think they can get quite close. I do think Cork have a good threat going forward. I think they have good runners from deep. I think Rory Deane is a super player. And then they obviously have the finishers at the other end with the likes of Hurling and Collins. I think the main thing is around midfield, whether they can compete with Dublin. I think Meath did a very good job competing with Dublin for about 50 minutes in that Leinster final around midfield. So if Cork can do that and can get ball into their forwards, I think Cork can put up a bit of a score here. Obviously, I think Dublin do have, at the other end, you would be a little bit worried about Cork's defence and Dublin's ability to score goals. But yeah, I think Cork can give Dublin a bit of a game here. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a little bit closer than the handicap would suggest.
Interesting stuff, and we like a bit on the goal score markets here, the match market. Paddy, is there one that stands out here?
I was looking through it there now. There's the market is kind of the usual suspects are popping up. Con O'Callaghan is 13-8 anytime. Cormac Costello 21-10. Brian Hurley 13-5. But I don't think Cork will get a goal. I think Cork no goal is a bit of a runner for me there. Now I was looking at it. I think they're about no Cork goals 13-10. I might take that one on.
Interesting stuff. Now, you've mentioned Rory Deane as a man who can cause a few problems. He's 16-1 for the first goal. Would that interest you at all, Damien?
Yeah, it slightly interests me, and I kind of going to go against Paddy here a bit here. I do think Cork can score goals against this Dublin team. You go a couple of games back, Kildare made a lot of goal chances, and I just think Cork's style are going to create goal chances against most teams. The man in form is obviously Brian Hurley, 5 goals so far in the championship in 3 games. At 13-5, anytime I'd be willing to take a chance. Yeah, I think Cork can get a couple of goals here.
By the sounds of it, you think maybe that Cork, maybe they've got Tyrone the week after, and you're looking then down the road at Roscommon. Who do you think they can beat in this thing? Because if you're liking them to have a good stab at Dublin, you must fancy them later on down the road to, as long as this doesn't turn into a bad result for them and confidence gets knocked. But you sure you think that they can have a bit of a stab later on?
I think as long as they stay close enough to Dublin, as long as they don't get hammered, I'd kind of give them a chance against Tyrone next week. I think Croke Park suits Cork as well, the open space, and I think they really, really do have strong players running through the centre. And if they're going to create goal chances, they have. I know that the opposition mightn't be the greatest, but they've scored 10 goals in 3 games. You have to respect that. And so, yeah, I just think they're a dangerous team. I think compared to some of the other teams around their level, they have a lot more of a threat. So I think they're a dangerous team for one of the top teams.
We love a bit of value, which you're nearly making me a believer in this Cork side. Listen to the argument. Back to you, Paddy, for the best bet on the coupon. Is that the no goals bet for you, or what do you think?
For me, I think the best bet on the coupon is Dublin and Cork total points to be under 41.5. I think that's a bit too high. I think it's at 5-6, so under 41.5 points at 5-6.
Paddy hoping this one stays tight. Damien, what about you?
Yeah, well, I'm gonna go slightly against Paddy. Cork over 1.5 goals is 9-4. I just think they will create chances against this Dublin defence, and I could see them getting a couple of goals. So I think it's worth a bet at 9-4.
So a 9-4 shout for Damien, the best bet on the coupon. Nice bit of value there. Don't miss out on that one. We'll crack on with Sunday's action here, the Group 1 for the Super 8s, and we start off in Ballybuffet, 2 o'clock live on Sky Sports. Donegal versus Meath. What sort of prices do we have here, Damien?
Yeah, it's 1-8 Donegal, 14-1 to draw, 6-1 Meath, 7-point handicap. Donegal -7 is evens, 11-1 the handicap draw, and Meath +7 is 10-11.
And look, we've spoken favourably about Donegal in the podcast previously, Paddy. They're a strong contender to go far in this thing, but does a 7-point handicap underestimate your lads?
I think probably looking at last weekend, people are thinking Meath conceded 118 against Clare. You know, this is a seasoned Donegal team that will defend quite well and have been scoring freely as well. I think people are thinking that, you know, Donegal will be able to pick off a few more scores than what Clare created. I think one ball dropped in around the square caused havoc and ended up in the back of the Meath net. If Michael Murphy ends up in there, or McFadden or one of these boys, you know, it could cause a bit of consternation. So I think there could be goals in Donegal at the weekend, which isn't a great thing to be saying. So I think the 7-point handicap probably is a bit reflective of the two performances, the two last games that both teams have played.
Just briefly, what's the mood like around the place? There seems to be a lot of positivity on the back of it, albeit now you had to show a bit of steel to get there, but good vibe around the place?
Yeah, I think that for the last 15 minutes down in Portlaoise, it was just all nerves, you know. It was kind of into uncharted waters. We'd never been in this position, you know, to be that close to getting into a quarter final on the back of losing a Leinster final. You know, the crowd were on edge and there was a lot of mistakes and we just couldn't shut down the game. We had plenty of opportunities to go 4, 5, 6 clear. And Clare just chipped away and we coughed up easy scores. And I think now everybody around, I'm working here in Navan, and a lot of people, they're just excited and they're looking forward to progress. You know, this time last year and the years gone by, we were out of the championship, we were watching everybody else play football. Now we're going to be playing 3 Division 1 teams, getting ready for a Division 1 campaign in the league next year. It's all about progress for these boys and it's about staying competitive. And they'll take an awful lot of pride in themselves and in the jersey. So they'll not want to be the whipping boys of this group. And they'll definitely be putting down a marker this weekend. And hopefully if they can go back to the defensive performance against Dublin and try and keep Donegal tight, that they can go from there and build on that.
Damien, do you see trouble for Meath coming down the tracks here when they have to go on the road, or what do you think?
I think Meath, I'd probably be on the +7 side of the handicap if I have to go on one side. Donegal have been very impressive so far, obviously, but 7 points is a lot. I think one thing that will possibly help Meath is that they've played Donegal a couple of times in the league this year, so they will have some kind of just getting used to playing against Donegal's style, which is a kind of a very hard style to play against. So they're competitive in both league matches, and I think that'll help them just mentally going in as well. So yeah, I'd probably be on the Meath +7 side if I was going either side.
And you got the total points market there, 37.5. Is that about right? Well, you're going to think it's about right, but do you think what sort of level of scoring can we expect in this one?
Yeah, I think it depends a lot on Meath's approach to the game. Like obviously against the Dubs, we saw they were very defensive, whereas last week against Clare, they were very open, and Clare scored pretty easily. So it really does depend on what Meath we see this weekend. I think Donegal are always going to score, and they have a serious threat in their forwards with a lot of different forwards able to chip in with scores. So I think on the 12 points, it depends a lot the way that Meath approach this game.
Would you echo those sentiments, Paddy, or what do you think?
Yeah, I think it hinges on what score Meath can put up. You know, I think Donegal will probably go somewhere around. They'll probably go close to scoring 20, maybe like a 117 or something like that. So if you're looking at the betting, can you expect Meath to get up over maybe 16, 17, 18 points? I wouldn't be too sure. So I'd be taking on that. I actually have it written down there. Donegal v Meath +37.5. I think that'll be an unders for me at 5 to 6.
Unders for Paddy. And just finally, what's the best bet on the coupon here? Are you going to stick with me? Do you think that they can pull it out of the fire, or what do you think?
I'd be looking at a performance and staying. I think Donegal will win the match. But that minus the 7-point handicap. That's something that them lads should be fighting for, and then looking back to maybe try and get as close as possible to Donegal. But I think Donegal just might have a few strings to their bow that Meath mightn't just be able to deal with.
And you like the handicap, or the points total market is the best bet in the coupon? Would that be right, or is there anything else?
Yeah, that's my best one.
Spot on. And what about you, Damien? Best bet on the coupon?
I'm going to go with possibly who I think is possibly football of the year so far this championship, Jamie Brennan. He's 11-2 first goal scoring, 7-4 anytime. I think they're both decent prices. I think he just offers a serious goal threat, and yeah, at those prices, I think he can continue his good form this year.
Super stuff. And our final game to preview on the postcast on Sunday, Kerry versus Mayo, an absolutely seriously tasty clash, one we can't wait for at Fitzgerald Stadium, 4 o'clock live on RTE1. What way are they betting here?
It's 4-7 Kerry, 15-2 to draw, 15-8 Mayo. 2-point handicap. Kerry -2 is 11-10, 8-1 the handicap draw, and Mayo +2 is 10-11.
Now, Paddy, these two teams, when they meet, they seem to bring out the best in each other. We've had some classics in recent years. Does this have the making of another, or what way do you see this going?
This is going to be this will be a ripper down in Killarney. This is tie of the weekend. You know, it's perfect for Kerry. I was down doing a preview night on Wednesday in Killarney, and the mood around Killarney was that they're a little bit apprehensive, they're a little bit nervous, they don't really know their best team in Kerry yet. Are the lads that have come through off the minors, are they mature enough? But you know, they have to be at their absolute best to win at the weekend, and that's a great place to be. The lads will be questioning themselves, they'll be questioning the group, they'll be questioning the team from inside the dressing room, and if they can get the performance out of each other, I think they'll win this match. I think that anything below their very best won't be good enough to beat Mayo.
Mayo, they seem to be really improving with games, Damien. They go the long road all the time, but what sort of a tactical threat do you think they can pose to Kerry here?
Well, I think the first thing is Mayo have a very strong midfield, which Kerry really struggled with in the league final. Mayo just got well on top in midfield in the half-back line, and Kerry weren't able to deal with it. They're also good at running at a defence, Mayo, which Kerry's defence probably didn't look great. If you look at the way Cork ran through the middle against Kerry, I think Mayo will be trying to replicate that. So yeah, Mayo do have a couple of advantages over Kerry that you could see from the league final. The one probably minus to that is the two best players I thought Mayo had in the league final were Matthew Ruane and Diarmuid O'Connor. And they're both injured, so they are big losses from that point of view, all right. But yeah, I think Mayo, strong midfield and run at Kerry would be their tactics, I think, and Kerry will have to deal with that.
The Mayo midfield could cause problems for Kerry, says Dane Fitzgerald. Paddy, if I was to ask you here, put the neck in the chopping block. You've been to the Kingdom, you've got a feel for what the vibe is around the county. You got the inside scoop for us. Do you think they'll go and do it?
I believe they will. I think home advantage again is massive. You know, I think Killarney Fitzgerald Stadium, I think they've brought down the capacity to about 32,000. It'll be full. It probably will be about 60-40. Mayo have a great travelling support. We're talking about they've 5,000 season ticket holders, and most of them will travel, and they'll bring a crew of people for a weekend out in Killarney. But I think home advantage is massive, and the 6 Kerry forwards that they could choose from if they were all fully fit and ready to rock, I think that they could have enough ammunition up front to beat Mayo. I think the bet for me, the best bet is Kerry half-time, Kerry full-time is 11-10.
11-10, a confident shout from Paddy. Damien, are you going to stick with him, or are you going to think that Mayo midfield can unlock them enough for a bit of value in a handicap, or what's your take on this?
Yeah, no, I'm going to stick with Kerry. I think the home advantage is obviously a big thing, as Paddy was saying. And I think just a couple of players on Mayo's side that are injuries are big losses for them. I think that you'd expect the Kerry players as well, particularly the younger players, might have learned a lot from the league final. So they won't be kind of as surprised by that intensity again. So I think at home you'd have to favour Kerry, and I'd go for them on the handicap, the -2 at 11-10.
Great stuff. Well, now, lads, we'll crack on with our naps for the weekend. Mine is going to have to be, I'm going to go with Donegal, -7 against Meath. Apologies. Paddy, what's your best bet of the weekend?
I think Cork v Dublin to be under 41.5 points at 5-6.
5-6 shout from Paddy. Damien?
Yeah, I'm going to go Kerry v Mayo under 37.5 at 5-6 as well.
Under 37.5 points. So that is our enhanced treble. You'll find that live on Paddy Power's website this afternoon, please God, and you can get the treble of all the naps. It'll be a boosted price for you there, available to, please God, collect from on Sunday evening, all being well. Listen, lads, thanks a million for joining us again for the GAA Postcast. My football expert Paddy O'Rourke. Earlier in the first half we had Taggy Fogarty, the Kilkenny man who's nailed his colours to the mast for Crow Park this Sunday, and of course the mighty Paddy Power representative Damien Fitzgerald. David Jennings will be back in the hot seat again next week, so I'll be making my way out to make the tea or something like that. But thanks a million for joining us over the last couple of weeks. Enjoy the football and hurling this weekend.
Check out Paddy's Rewards Club. Simply place 5 bets of £10 or more across any sport in a week, and you'll get a free £10 bet the next week. T&Cs apply. 18 plus. BeGambleAware.org.